Great. So thank you for taking the time to attend the Facebook and Sierra Club webinar. This is something that I established this past January to try and improve our communications through social media and specifically through Facebook at the chapter and the group level. I noticed that a lot of volunteers had very different background and experiences with Facebook, and that led to very different messaging tactics. And I think that there are many ways that we can come together and strengthen our communications online and offline. So the webinar is set up to go through the vision for Facebook that staff and some of our Sierra Club leaders have laid out together, a current analysis of our Facebook page, and ways to optimize posts and post engagement so that we can improve the way that we're communicating to our supporters and to our members. A quick note before we dive in is that this webinar focuses on optimization and messaging. It doesn't really focus on how to post on Facebook or switch between accounts or any of kind of the details on how to use Facebook because most of the people who are attending this are familiar with it already. If you do have questions about how to use Facebook, no matter how detailed or basic as those questions might seem, I'd be really happy to set up a separate time to answer some of those questions, or if we have time at the end to talk about those. But again, this is really focusing on optimization and messaging. And this webinar is focused on organization pages, not Facebook groups. And there are some differences in the way that pages and groups function, as well as individual account pages. So again, this doesn't focus on personal accounts, and it doesn't focus on groups, but it focuses on pages. And each page has a slightly different goal, and so while this can be useful at a local level, at a group level, and for our issue teams, it's really focused on the chapter page and the goals that we're trying to accomplish with that page. Those similar concepts could be applied to more localized pages or more specified issue pages. So I'm not going to dive into all of the details about a page versus a group, but here are some of the differences, and this will be available. I sent the PowerPoint to you, and so you're able to kind of dive in and read these if you're interested. But we function with a Facebook page because it allows as many people as we want to like our page in a really public way. It comes up when you Google it or however search engine you use, and it lets you add whoever is admin and able to post and who is able to contribute to the content of the page, whereas groups are more conversation-based rather than presenting information out. So again, a page allows you to put out information with some commenting below that, whereas groups are a little more interactive. There's a little bit less of a hierarchy in terms of pushing out information. Our hope after this webinar and this series of webinars is that posts will move Sierra Club's mission forward and that they'll align more closely with our goals and priority issues, highlighting the work of volunteers and staff, and that it'll move readers to action, so not just online but also in person, and that we'll have greater optimization with our posts, and that admin to our page know how to use social media tools as effectively as possible. So our vision for Facebook is to increase our post engagement, our number of likes, but also, again, to highlight the content that we're really working on at the Sierra Club chapter and local level. We also see Facebook as a really great space for a membership tool, since a lot of our Facebook fans are not members. And so this allows us to really share information to a really broad base who might not be Sierra Club members. So our current situation, and this information was pulled from January 2016, so some of it's a little off out of date now, but we have around 3,000 likes. The fans by gender breakdown is really interesting to me. We have about 60% of our fans are women, which is very interesting in terms of messaging tactics that we can use, and different ways that we could possibly engage men more actively in our social media page. Something else that's interesting to me is the demographic breakdown by age of our fans. So this graph at the bottom, the numbers on the left is percent, and the numbers on the bottom are age groups. And if you'll notice, a lot of our Facebook fans, so people who have liked our page, it's fairly evenly dispersed, the highest category being 45 to 54, with the second highest being 55 to 64, which pretty well mirrors the age range of our members. So that's good to note that our Facebook fans mirror that demographic, even if most of them are not members. However, something interesting is that the majority of Facebook's demographics fall between the 18 and 34 age range. So there's a potential audience there that we could be reaching out to help encourage new leaders as they become older and perhaps could become more active in the club. So we have potential with Facebook to engage new leaders while they're younger, so that they have kind of a longer volunteer or member time with the club. Something else that's worth noting is that our post reach, so the amount of content that shows up on personal profile news feeds, the majority of that, by a pretty significant margin, is 25 to 34. However, post engagement falls in the older age demographics as well. So that 55 to 64 age range is the group that engages with our post. So clicks the link, likes it, comments on it, which is really interesting because it can kind of lead us to question, okay, if the largest age demographic that's seeing our content is 25 to 34, but they're not engaging with it, you know, why is that? Why aren't people drawn to like or share it when it's coming across their feed? And what is driving some of those older folks in the 55 to 64 to engage with our posts? So it's just another way to think about who is seeing our posts and how we could potentially engage different age demographics on social media, perhaps with targeted posts, with different font styles or graphics, or maybe it means we're creating more Facebook paid advertisements to balance out some of those, or maybe it's okay. So it just calls into question some of the different audiences that we're reaching right now. Another thing worth note, and this is starting to change as we've been doing these webinars and our admin are thinking a little bit in a more scheduled way or maybe in a more strategic way about what we're posting. When I first made this presentation, we were posting between 1 and 11 posts per day, and many of those were shared links, not original content. And so by that I mean Greenpeace posted a really neat article about green roofs in France, and then that was shared on our page, oftentimes without linking it back to the Sierra Club mission, and just sharing kind of this really cool viral piece of information. But very rarely was it actually links back to our website or our actual press releases or our actual events and the work that we were really doing. And so there was a gap, I think, between our social media consumers and what they saw us sharing versus the work that we were actually doing. Additionally, our engagement was relatively low each week. There's a lot of reasons for that, which I'll dive into in just a moment. Something else worthy of note is that our top posts, again, were often shared links, very little original content, and very few included calls to action. And the majority of those top posts, so posts that were either engaged with the most or most people saw them come across their news feed were anti-Scott Walker or anti-GOP posts, which is somewhat concerning because we are a nonpartisan organization, but additionally, those posts were incredibly negative but didn't include a call to action. And so it kind of bred this negative online comment feedback loop where people weren't taking any action to change what they were seeing, but were just getting really frustrated. Additionally, satire pieces that were kind of snarky, but a little bit fun, viral green technology articles that were happening globally were all top posts as well. Something worthy of note is that peak unlikes and removed from news feeds correlated with our negative peak posts. So when people were seeing those negative posts, they were unfollowing our page. The exception to some of these trends are posts about the Keystone XL rejection and some posts about oil train derailments and the actions that we were taking along with one of our close allies, cars, in response to that. So those were some exceptions to this top post rule, but for the most part it has been shared links that seem to be relatively negative. And this is just one example of how negativity can breed negativity, and we could funnel this anger into a really effective call to action where we could be much more productive in building out some of our campaigns or giving these frustrated people a way to plug in and help make change so that we could start winning some of our campaigns. So that's just one hope for kind of switching the way that we message on social media. So to help combat some of this negativity, the chapter chair, along with staff and a few other really active volunteers who have some experience in messaging, got together to create these guidelines. And I'm not going to read all of them, but some ones to point out are to just be really intentional about messaging, as I've mentioned here, and to try and include original content pointing back to the work that we're doing to help move our mission forward, to be respectful and professional, and to make sure that anything posted reflects the position of the Sierra Club, not the admin's individual beliefs, which I know can be really hard sometimes, but it can be easily fact-checked online. Sierra Club has a list of policies online that we can check to make sure that we're in line with those and not violating any of our communication guidelines or policies that come from the national level. If some of these expectations are violated, we can delete the post, and if any given admin violates these expectations 3 times, admin status may be revoked. If there are really severe situations, that'll lead to a conversation, and the admin will be notified by chapter staff, and we can talk about that and address that. But I really don't anticipate any problems. I know we have really, really awesome volunteers who have been doing really solid work, so I don't see that being a concern, but that is just a piece of the guidelines worthy of note. So the next piece of this webinar really focuses on post optimization, which is something else that we've identified when analyzing how the chapter page has been functioning. As I mentioned earlier, engagement on our posts has been relatively low. And so there are some ways to help combat that. Something that a lot of people who are admin to Facebook pages don't realize is that not everything you post shows up on every single fan's timeline. In fact, sometimes people are only seeing one post from us every month, sometimes even less. If we go to our Facebook page right now, we'll see that what we posted today reached 95 people, and the one prior to that reached 192 people, and that's out of our 3,500 fans. So again, only a small fraction of the people that we have following our page actually see our posts. Some of this is just because Facebook wants you to pay so that more people see your posts. But some of that has to do with the content that we're posting, and that there are many ways to improve what we're posting so that more people can see it. So the way that posts are measured and that more people see them is to increase infinity, weight, and be concerned with the timing of the posts. So affinity is the relationship between the object creator and the recipient, so that those who are engaged with our page more often will see more of our posts. For example, I often switch to my personal profile and like a lot of the things that we've posted, which means that on my timeline you see a lot from Sierra Club show up. I also follow a lot of environmental pages, so Facebook kind of knows that Sierra Club is in my set interests. It really personalizes what you do and don't see, and limits it to what Facebook thinks you will like. So a way to overcome that is by posting diverse content. And by that I don't just mean in topic, although that's part of it, but also diversifying whether we're posting links or pictures or sharing blogs or just text posts or posting polls. There are a lot of different things that Facebook allows you to post. Videos, for example, do really well. And so changing up the type of content as well as the subject of the content can help improve infinity and the variety of people who see our content. Another way that posts are optimized is based on weight. So objects with more engagements, likes, comments, or shares, have more weight, and that means that more people will see it. So it's kind of a cyclical process. The more people who like something, the more people will see it. This is especially true for comments and shares. So encouraging people to engage with posts is really helpful, and that can happen by asking a question, creating a call to action, or for example using a hashtag or tagging another organization. If we look at this post earlier today about Solar Education Week blog, I was able to tag UW Stout Sees the Grid, and that means that all these students who like or run this page can see that we tagged them, and they can like what we posted. So tagging people is helpful as well to increase who sees it and the weight. Additionally, and this one has been one of the most important for us, timing of posts is very important. Recency reflects how old posts are, and most news feeds only carry posts for about 42 hours at a maximum. The more pages you like, the shorter time frame that your timeline or your news feed will carry. And so a lot of people won't see content unless it was posted within 24 hours of when they're scrolling through. And so that means posting regularly is really important. I know for a lot of issue area teams or local groups, not posting enough can be one of the biggest challenges to overcome. And posting more often will really help increase likes and engagement and a whole lot of other things, even though at first, if you have really few fans, it might feel like you're shouting into a dark void. Posting regularly will help encourage people to respond, and so that is important. However, our page actually had kind of a very different problem, our chapter page. We had so many posts, as I mentioned, up to 11 a day, sometimes even more, that they were drowning each other out, which decreases the ability for people to engage. So again, timing is just one piece of this very complicated algorithm that Facebook will not make public because it doesn't want everyone to know its secrets and wants people to pay for boosted ads. But posting too often means that people can't form that affinity, and posts cannot become more weighted due to engagement. So it kind of drowns out the other pieces of this puzzle, which means that posting only 1 to 3 times a day total is ideal. And leaving around 3, maybe more than that, hours in between each post is really important. So again, posting regularly, but not so often that it will drown out other posts. And again, it's suggested by most people who study communications and social media that pages only post 1 to 3 times per day total. I mentioned that there's a lot of different ways to engage people in terms of affinity and weight. This just summarizes some of the other content that could be shared. This is summarizing ideas about timing and post optimization. Something really interesting is that you can go in and look. If you're an admin to a Facebook page, you can see when your fans tend to be online. And so I've been tracking this for a while, and a lot of our fans, I'm sure because many work, many of our fans are online around 9 a.m. or a little bit before, 9 p.m. probably right before bed, and noon right around the lunch break hour. And so posting a little bit before that time is ideal so that people can kind of see it and engage with it while they're, on their morning and afternoon and before bed Facebook breaks. I have a lot of other post optimization suggestions, but before I jump into that, I am going to unmute your mic to see if you have any questions as of now.
No questions. I think it's very informative.
Okay. Great. And I'm getting some pretty bad feedback there, so I am going to mute you again, but again, comment if you have any questions as we go along. All right. So a couple other suggestions that we have is to, again, include a call to action. If there's something established on the Sierra Club website, if we actually have an action item set up, it's really great to link back to that, whether that's a petition or a donation ask or a membership ask. Linking back to that can be really powerful. But otherwise, it could be something like invite 3 friends to this event, or today is car-free day. Try to walk to work or use transit if it's accessible to you. Including those calls to actions can give people a hopeful and positive way to engage with the work that we're doing. Something else that we can do is pin posts, which does not actually increase engagement usually, but it means that when people come to our Facebook page, rather than scrolling through and seeing posts on their timeline, when they actually click to see Sierra Club Wisconsin, if we have something pinned to the top, it means that that post will be the first post that they see when they come to our page, and it's going to be acknowledged with this little flag here in the corner. That just means that the same post will be available no matter how many posts we make after this, so that people can engage with that. So a lot of groups that I've seen will have a donation ask kept there, or a membership link kept there, just so that anyone who visits this page, often for the first time, that's the first thing they see and can engage with. It doesn't make sense all the time to have something pinned to the top, but sometimes if you have an ongoing campaign, that could be really helpful in sharing your information. Again, engaging in and running campaigns, social media campaigns, is really important. Planning things ahead, scheduling posts, learning from other organizations, and interacting with other pages. I mentioned earlier tagging other pages can be really helpful in communicating across movement spaces and across the internet with some ally organizations, or tag groups to get their attention. So when I come here, the way that you tag a group, if you're not familiar, is to type the @ sign and then the name of the group. So for example, if I wanted to tag UW-Madison Sierra Student Coalition, I would use the @ sign and then start typing Sierra Student Coalition, and there they pop up. I can click them, and that'll just connect them in the post so that they see that they were tagged in something and can possibly share it or comment back, like it, to increase that engagement and to share through their network as well. So that's another suggestion that I have. I have a lot of samples here about Facebook Done Right. This is an organization that I think has a pretty powerful social media presence. They're an anti-human trafficking group, and I'm not going to read everything that they do well, but again, it's here for reference if you want to look back at it. Some other pieces to crafting the perfect post is to have really effective text of your post, of course. So relating what you're sharing back to the mission, providing all of the information that someone might need about it, keeping it appropriate but personable and engaging, using hashtags when appropriate, so not all the time, but if, for example, you know that keep it in the ground is a really common hashtag, you might want to use that and connect your conversation with one that's happening all over. And we've actually gotten quite a few likes to our page when we use relevant hashtags because people will search for them and it'll show up that we were posting about it or our allies were posting about it. And so people who like these other groups like 350.org, Rainforest Action Network, Greenpeace, might be scrolling through and see something from Sierra Club with that hashtag and go, oh, I should probably like their page now as well because they're part of this conversation and they post things I care about. So hashtags, while they're not completely optimized for Facebook yet, they are gaining traction in the Facebook community. They're still really relevant to Twitter, but again, growing momentum in terms of Facebook. Using effective images are really important. There's a really great website called Canva where you can go in and design pictures and graphics that'll fit well in this link compartment. So if the picture that you're trying to share gets cut off or looks fuzzy or something is goofy about it, like this blog post didn't have a really great graphic. So I just created one that fits here with our Sierra Club colors and our font that we use and uploaded it pretty easily to use that with the link instead of like a fuzzy picture that might not engage very many people. So it's another really helpful tip for getting people to actually click on your link. This is more relevant for Twitter than Facebook, but it's also important on Facebook for people who are sharing information. If you have a link that's really, really long, it can bog down the text of your post and look not awesome. So using a website like tinyurl or bit.ly, which you can just go to those websites, paste in the link, it'll shorten it for you so you use less characters to share the link out to people. And then finally, I've mentioned this a few times, engaging other people or pages in your post by tagging them with the @ sign. So I have a little activity for us to try now. So this is a scenario where you're scrolling through and you've checked to see how many posts have been scheduled on our page. So for example, you look up here, scheduled post, oh, there's not one scheduled until tomorrow. And I only posted twice today, and I really think I could share something in a couple of hours. I want to schedule a post. So you come to this conclusion that you want to post something. There's room in your social media calendar for it, and you find these articles that you think are interesting and you want to share one of them. So in this scenario, it's January 15th, 2016. It's about a week after federal legislation has passed banning microbeads, and it's also a few days after President Obama's last State of the Union. So you see these two articles come across your feed. One of them summarizes what you need to know about the U.S. banning microbeads. And then the other one is the environmental edition of President Obama's State of the Union address, kind of summarizing how frequently Obama said certain words related to energy and climate and oil and gas, tracking it over all of his years in office. So these articles show up on your news feed, and you think, okay, well, I'm an admin to the Sierra Club page. I think it'd be really great to share some of this information out. Both seem relevant at a large-scale level. So what I would like you to do with this activity is just take a couple minutes and draft the text that you would share with a link to these articles. So again, what would show up right here, the text of your post to the link that you're sharing. So we'll just take a couple of minutes. You can either take note of this on a notepad or type it in the question box on the webinar page, whichever makes sense to you. We'll just give you a couple minutes, and you'll try and craft the perfect post for just one of these. So again, which one would be more relevant to share? I'm going to unmute you in case you have questions. These are my examples. So if I were to have picked the State of the Union one, then I'm hearing some feedback. So I'm going to put you on mute briefly again. All right, perfect. So looking back to the State of the Union post, I would have said a few days ago, President Obama gave his last State of the Union. Check out this powerful summary, State of the Union Environmental Edition by Environmental Action, and I would have tagged them. This year will we see more powerful action to stop hashtag climate change. And then the hashtag that was trending for State of the Union is SOTU. So that's what I would have done. I feel like the State of the Union, while it's not Wisconsin specific and it's not Sierra Club specific, it does impact us all in a I don't know, pretty big way. Was a pretty powerful news item, and so I think commenting on it would be appropriate. But I am more inclined, like many people, to share the microbeads article. And I would have said, what exciting news, microbeads, the plastic in many beauty products, has been banned at the national level and will be phased out by 2017. We hope that we can have as much success at a local level with our campaign to hashtag ban the bag and decrease the number of plastic bags in landfills. Find out more about our local efforts to ban plastic bags by messaging Great Waters Group on Facebook. So Great Waters Group has been running a campaign to ban the bag, and so I felt like connecting that article, which is a piece of news at the national level, to something really, really local, gives people the opportunity to not only see the work that Sierra Club volunteers are doing here on the ground, but also to engage here in Wisconsin with something similar. So if I cared about keeping plastic out of water through microbead banning, I would probably also care about banning plastic bags. And so I tried to draw that connection there. And I think some of the most powerful ways to share some of these big news items that are happening at a national level is by connecting them back to the work that we're doing, to give people a way to engage, as well as learn more about the work that we're doing and potentially volunteer. So I tried to connect it all in one post there.